It's 1:30 p.m. in Lagos, 12:30 p.m. in London, and in Accra, we're bringing you markets analysis and insights on Business Incorporated live from Channels TV Lagos. And here's what's coming up on the program. G20 Compact with Africa Conference kicks off in Berlin. The African Union celebrates Africa Industrialization Day 2023. The Nigeria Central Bank postpones rate decision meeting for the second time. Welcome to the program. I am Will Ibang. Let's kick off with the markets. First up, major equities in Africa. We're at intraday. We're seeing equities trading with mostly positive sentiments. Nigeria, however, is in the red. Marginally though, 0.03%. We're seeing South Africa up at intraday today, 0.42%. Let's check out Egypt. EGX30, how they fared at intraday. 0.29% up. Not bad for that exchange. Now we'll see Nairobi Securities Exchange in Kenya closing Friday's session also in the green. Now let's check out the Middle East, where it's slightly mixed at intraday. Abu Dhabi up in a flat line, 0.00%, almost unchanged there. And we also see Dubai up 0.2%. Let's check out the other exchanges in that region. 0.37 for Saudi, and the Qatari index is also down 0.58%. Now we'll look at the G20 Compact with Africa's conference is taking place in Germany. Now leaders from more than a dozen African countries will gathered in Berlin for the next few days for the summit, which aims to help bolster private investment in Africa. And Nigeria's president is also participating at this summit. Our correspondent Juliana Olenka is our eyes and ears at the event. Good afternoon, Juliana. What has transpired so far? Can you tell us, can you share with us what phenomenal or what significant milestones or steps have been taken so far?
Good afternoon. Well, it's been a very, very busy morning, I've got to say. As you quite rightly said, the G20 Compact with Africa Summit is taking place today in Berlin. In fact, I think this is probably the biggest financial investment summit that's ever taken place on German soil. We have over 800 delegates in the building, currently downstairs in the JW Marriott Hotel. And I think really this is a part of Olaf Scholz and the German nation trying their best to capture what is a very promising market in Africa. Now, how the G20 presidency works is that you are president for 12 months, and the German presidency will end at the end of this month, and they'll hand over to Argentina on the 1st of December. And I think really the Chancellor Olaf Scholz understands that it's absolutely fundamental that this powerhouse of Europe does catch up with the likes of China, with the likes of America, and indeed France and Britain, and make some of their promises true. Now, I'm sure our viewers will remember just a couple of weeks ago, at the end of October, Olaf Scholz did lead a very large delegation from Berlin to Abuja and Lagos, where the Chancellor did have some private time with His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as you quite rightly said, is around. I know that there have been a couple of closed-door meetings between the two just this morning alone, and there are several other bilaterals that will take place between the two gentlemen. So really what this summit is all about is Germany really playing catch-up and using the large platform, which is the G20 summit, to usher in Africa. Of course, Nigeria were in India a couple of months ago. That was this administration's first big international outing. And it went down quite well. And I think African nations realize that they need to be at the seat of the G7 meetings, of the G20 meetings, if they are going to proceed with some of the economic hurdles that they see before them.
You rightly captured it, Juliana, saying that Germany or Europe is trying to play catch up, for geopolitical influence in Africa, it appears. But we're seeing coming out from this conference, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz pledging $4.4 billion for Africa-EU Green Energy Initiative. Can you tell us more about that and when do we expect this to materialize?
Well, materialisation is really the key word, Will, because, I'm sure our viewers are fully aware of that. The president's been very busy over the past few months. He has been hop-tropping around the world. And, I've spoken to a few ministers this morning, namely the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Power, and the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, as well as Foreign Affairs. And, they say that we are going to see action. And I think it's action that we need now rather than, the PR and the photo opportunities and the pledges. Like you've just said, there have been several pledges announced this morning by the German Chancellor. But what we really need to see now is action, don't we? We need to see a lot of these engagements trickle down to the population who so desperately need a come up. But hopefully, fingers crossed, this new bilateral relationship between Chancellor Olaf Scholz and between His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu could perhaps lead to something. I know that there is a massive skills gap in Germany at the moment. In fact, I think their unemployment is currently at about 1.8 million, which is a record high in Germany. And they said they desperately need the skills. But then, of course, we don't want constantly seeing our best workers in Nigeria coming into Europe and us not getting anything back from that. So I think that's a really crucial point. Yes, there have been pledges. Yes, we are aware that there is a skills gap and Germany desperately needs the youthful and the vibrant and the skills that we have in Nigeria. But what are we going to get in return? I know a lot of the meetings today completely off the record, so there's only so much I can say. But certainly there's lots of interest in agriculture, of course, construction, very important. I told you that the Minister of Power is here. He was also in that closed-door meeting with the Chancellor. And, of course, transportation, 3 big areas. So it's still all to play for. Again, lots of pledges. We heard pledges in New York. We heard pledges in Saudi. We heard pledges in the UAE. What we want now is we want to see action. We want to see follow-up. I've been assured from the ministries that there is going to be action, but let's just see if we can hold them to account on that.
Yeah, that's true, Juliana. We do hope we can hold them accountable or hold them to account and see how these pledges finally come to the countries or to the continents that, as you said, we desperately need. Thank you so much, Juliana Olainka, for sharing those insights with us. Now, an unscrewed spaceship by Elon Musk's privately run company, SpaceX, blew up in a flight test this weekend. It wasn't the first time this happened. Lars Older is with Deutsche Welle and he joins me from Berlin to give us the details about that. Lars, what can you tell us about what exactly happened to the spaceship?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Will. Correct, this was not the first time a SpaceX test flight didn't go as planned. It was actually the second time in as many flights. There has been a similar situation in April where an initial test mission ended after only 4 minutes, also in an explosion. Now let's look at what happened this time. The 2-stage rocket ship had blasted off from the company's Starbase launch site in Texas. It got as high as 148 kilometers above ground and was supposed to complete a 90-minute mission to space and back. But then the rocket's super heavy first-stage booster exploded over the Gulf of Mexico. Now the core Starship stage boosted further towards space. But a few minutes later, mission control suddenly lost contact with the vehicle, and it became clear that something had gone wrong and triggered a command to destroy the craft. Now, the exact reason for all this is unclear, and it will take a while to find out what went wrong. The investigation, according to the government-run FAA, that is the Federal Aviation Administration, has already begun.
Lars, it's quite funny, but is this the end of the SpaceX program, or what is next?
No, this is not the end. The mission might have ended in an explosion after 8 minutes, but that means the spaceship got around twice as much flight time as the first mission in April, and that means tremendous progress. And that is definitely the narrative SpaceX is pushing. According to one source, and I quote, "More things were successful than in the previous test, including some capabilities that were significant." So let's have a look at where this is going. NASA is SpaceX's primary customer, and they see the SpaceX program as central to landing humans on the moon again. And they're in a hurry because any mission to outer space is always part of a space race, and this time it's mostly with an eye on China. Now, besides what NASA has in mind, if you ask Elon Musk, the ultimate goal of his company's mission could lay a lot further than the moon. He said before that he ultimately wants to go to Mars. As a matter of fact, Musk is a firm believer of human colonies on Mars. Sounds crazy? Certainly, but for Musk, of course, it's par for the course.
So let's turn to the markets. It's first trading day. What are investors looking at today?
Yeah, the trading day started with a party in Japan. Shares there are at their highest level in 30 years this morning. That is obviously after a months-long bull market. It's been fueled by a weak yen as well as a strong economy and good corporate results. And then we're also looking at Argentina, where populist Javier Milei has won the election for president. That will likely bring tremendous change to the country and its economy. Currently, the country is looking at a recession and inflation at 145%. Argentina had to be bailed out by the IMF a few times, and that has come with capital control that the government had to abide by. The future now is unclear, but for now, it looks like Argentina is heading towards some unstable times.
Thank you so much, Lars, for that update. Now let's look at Asia markets now, where it was mostly higher on Monday after most major bourses ended lower in the previous session, while China left its benchmark lending rates unchanged. The People's Bank of China's one-year loan prime rate, the peg for most households and corporate loans in China, was at 3.45%. A 5-year benchmark loan rate, the peg for most mortgages, stood at 4.2%. Now, Japan's Nikkei 225 briefly touched a 33-year high earlier in the session, but struggled to hold on to gains afterwards. The index was down 0.59% and ended at 33,388 points, while the topics fell 0.77%. Hong Kong stocks led declines in that region on Friday as shares of Alibaba plunged after the Chinese e-commerce giant said it would not proceed with a full spin-off of its cloud group. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rebounded and rose 1.77% in the final hour of trade, while the China's Shanghai ended 0.2% higher. Now, South Korea's Kospi rose about 0.86%, while the small-cap Kosdaq saw a larger gain of 1.75%. In Australia, the S&P 200 gained 0.13%. Now to South Africa now, where President Cyril Ramaphosa says the challenges facing small businesses are exacerbated by the monopolies that control access to markets and create barriers for entrepreneurs. Ramaphosa was speaking at the second National Presidential SMEs and Cooperatives Awards in Johannesburg. The award ceremony, hosted by the Department of Small Business Development, serves as a platform to recognize and celebrate the achievements of entrepreneurs who play a crucial role in contributing to the country's economic growth. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Semosa, brings us more on this story.
Annual ceremony serves as a platform to acknowledge, encourage and celebrate excellence among small, medium and micro enterprises and cooperatives. The event comes at a time when entrepreneurs are facing many challenges such as policy implementation, access to funding and regulatory burden, to name a few. President Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged that these challenges are exacerbated by the monopolies that control access to markets and create barriers for entrepreneurs.
One of the big challenges with our economy, as observed by the World Bank, as observed by the IMF, is that there's too much concentration in our economy. There's too much centralized ownership.
Department of Small Business Development Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams says the department has exceeded the target of incubators.
On business development and skills services, we have surpassed our target on establishing incubators, which we are developing in partnership with universities and TVET.
Winners say they are inspired to do more and contribute to better the economy.
I am inspired because I think Africa has so much to offer. If you look at East Africa, West Africa, we have amazing commodities from cocoa, but I'm more about how do we process all those products here and have proudly owned African products.
Yes, I'm inspired to do more. And for me, this is confirmation that the work that we do is necessary and that we are seen, because in our work, we take financial literacy education to communities. So choosing to do professional work as a certified financial planner within the communities and being called to global stages like this one, it's something that we are very proud of.
So excited, it's so nice when government actually notices us hustlers and gives us encouragement to push on. It's not easy being a hustler, so they call it. So yes, I'm very excited.
Meanwhile, some say the journey was not without challenges.
Running a business as a young person, as a woman, based in a rural community is not easy at all. There were a lot of challenges, including resources, limited resources, living in a rural community.
Your intro is quite on point. I've been in this journey for quite some time now, and predominantly started the journey as a township entrepreneur. I think the challenges there are even more difficult, and I think migrating and growing in that space and now becoming some sort of an industrialist because of my background.
Well, entrepreneurs in South Africa are increasingly operating in a volatile environment, and the South African government is under pressure to stimulate the economy. Well, as we celebrate winners here, the attendees are telling me that this event serves as an inspiration for many entrepreneurs here in South Africa. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Still to come on the program, Nigeria's central bank postpones monetary policy committee meeting for the second time. That story and more still on Business Incorporated. Thanks for staying with us. Now, last week, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange said companies listed on the exchange now have the option to present their financial statements in US dollars. We all know that the Zimbabwe economy is highly dollarized, and the authorities believe that this move will provide policy certainty to the market, which has been disrupted by changes to currency regulations in the past. Paul Kamal, Director, Finatus Limited, joins us from Nairobi, Kenya. Good afternoon, Paul. Can you tell us this move by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange for companies to report financials in local currency or in US dollars has been commended by some analysts, but how are local businesses and investors reacting to the news of adopting dollars for reporting?
Thanks a lot for that kind of questions. But what we need to get is the context that Zimbabwe has been highly dollarized, and it was just a matter of the next thing that they could have done. You can see from 2009 that the authorities allowed the trading in US dollars. There have also been effects of the companies being allowed to transact in dollars. Actually, 80% of the dollars, or 80% of the economy is transacted in dollars. So that means that by allowing them to report in dollars, it just was the only sequential thing that they would have done. So I don't think there will be any major shift because they have actually been doing that. It's only that it has not been officially been adopted in reporting such kind of reporting the economic activities in dollars. So there will be minimal or if any significant change.
So what implications does this decision have for foreign investors interested in the Zimbabwean markets?
One of the things that happens is that they come into certainty in terms of now there will be no effect of exchange rates. for a long time, if you're using Zimbabwe currency and then you are coming to dollar, the exchange rates has been having a lot of challenges because there is no certainty. So that is one of the things that foreign investors have been at least assured of the certainty. The other things is that now the movement of the currency has become into formal channels. Now there will be at least the black market will be moved out because people now will know that the reporting, the certainty has come into play. Then the other one would be that the fact that now you can be able to repatriate the dollars, you can be able to ship up. That means that the market becomes fluid enough and it may be attractive, at least to the foreign investors.
So how does this move? We're just looking at the future here to US dollars aligned with the broader economic and monetary policies in Zimbabwe. I mean, how will this impact the local economy of Zimbabwe?
Well, dollarizations, at least it has helped stabilize in terms of removing the Zimbabwean foreign exchange. But it brings a bigger problem because one, the central bank of Zimbabwe will have challenges in instituting any monetary policies because they don't own the dollars. They cannot come with the local instruments. Now they'll be forced even to issue something like treasury bills, treasury bonds, even in dollars. And this happens that by this effect and dollarization in full, one, the Zimbabwean currency will be no longer a store of value, will be no longer unit of measurement. And finally now, what will happen is that it will no longer be means of exchange. What does it mean is that anytime the currencies of Zimbabwe to reintroduce it will be a big challenge. History has been, if you have been following the economic history, is that any country that has ever gone to this path, it's always very difficult to come back into adopting their local currencies. So it is, at the moment, I think it will be, Zimbabwe will find them in a fix if they'll ever want to come back. Then the other thing will be that the local companies will be forced to look for the dollar. But in case a company does not transact in dollars, then it will be a challenge for them to transact. So in short term, it may sort their monetary issues, but in the long term, I think it will be more fundamentally challenging because the monetary policy will not be in the hand of the central bank, but it will be to say the central bank of the currencies that has been issued, which is now US dollars.
Thank you so much, Paul Kamal, Director of Finances Limited from Nairobi, Kenya, for sharing those insights and your perspective on the program.
Thanks a lot.
Now, moving on. Today, Monday, November the 20th, is Africa Industrialization Day. The African Union, the event will bring together representatives of African states, other member states, regional entities, and partner organizations of the UN system supporting Africa's sustainable development. This year's theme focuses on the critical role of women-led enterprises in driving Africa's industrialization through processes and value addition, as well as the integration of African markets under the African Continental Free Trade Area. With intra-African trade dominated with manufactured products, there is huge potential for women to take up more roles in manufacturing as a pathway to the continent's structural transformation, economic inclusion, as well as job creation. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has postponed the meeting of its Monetary Policy Committee for a second time since the Governor Olayemi Cardoso was nominated to the post in September. The Apex Bank spokesman, Issa Abdulmin, confirmed this through text message that the MPC is not holding this week, which is supposed to hold today and tomorrow, and he didn't give a date for the next meeting. Investors have been looking to the MPC meeting for signals on how the central bank will rein inflation that's accelerating at the fastest pace in almost 2 decades. They're also anticipating an update on the overall of the nation's foreign exchange controls initiated by President Bola Tinubu in June. Now, the House of Representatives have promised to set up a special task force tribunal to recover the country's assets domiciled with individuals accused of corrupt practices while allegedly sitting on the nation's commonwealth. This is according to the chairman of the House Committee on Banking and Other Ancillary Institutions, Honorable Eze Nwachukwu. He was speaking at a workshop in Enugu in collaboration with Asset Management Commission of Nigeria, AMCON. Part of the essence of the workshop is to evolve mechanisms to speed up assets recovery process in Nigeria. The chairman of ANCOM is optimistic that with the support of the legislators and judiciary, the commission will achieve its aim of asset recovery.
By revelation we got from AMCON, a lot of big men will be put on the run. That's the message, because the House will use every legislative instrument available to make sure that these Nigerian so-called big men have been living by the taxpayers' resources. Imagine where people will be holding money in loans worth billions of naira, and they're parading themselves, moving up and down, yet nothing is being said about them. And we are going to do this by interface with the Committee on Judiciary. Certain parts of the Act establishing AMCON and as amended states that every case instituted for against AMCON, as it has to do with the assets, must be disposed of within 90 days. But some of these cases have lasted for past 10 years. These elements in the society hide under the weakness or this delay in judicial dispensation of these cases, and to hold the entire country and our economy to stand still. And we will no more allow that.
And with that, brings an end to the first edition of Business Incorporated this week. To join us tomorrow for another edition, I'm Will Ibang. Bye for now.